I put the New York Times together on Sundays in a bookstore for about 6 hours and got all the free books I wanted, which was great, not through stealing, but through remaindering, which is similar, but legal. Then what did I do? Then I got a paper route, which was large and time-consuming. And then I did then I did office work. I cleaned doctors' offices and travel agents' offices at nights. And then I was a waiter at Pizza Hut. I was a waiter at Swiss Chalet. I was a waiter at a seafood restaurant, both while I was in school and also full-time.
My first job, I was painting plaques at home when I was 10 years old, and then I got a job when I was 11 at a bookstore. And I was paid like $2 an hour. I mean, this is, 35 years ago or whatever, so, it's back in the day. I got a job at a convenience store for $2.50 an hour. Then I was cleaning offices for $2.60 an hour. And then I got a job at a hardware for $2.75 an hour. Ooh, right? But no, that's almost it's a fairly significant increase, right? Just over a couple of years. Because, I worked. And I got jobs as waiters, and I cleaned cars, and I've just been working since I was 10. I got 3 jobs, paid for most of my way through college. And again, when I was young and working in stores, I was always the kid picked to take the money to the bank. And I was always pretty honest that way, very honest that way. So Saturdays, when I was a kid, Saturdays, I used to go into the computer lab for like 8 hours straight. And I would try and create Missile Command through ASCII characters, and I would create Zork adventure games, and I would create spaceship fighting games, and I was in doing that, and I loved it. That's a choice. And other people went to the mall. Now, I didn't have any money, right? So I couldn't really go to the mall.
What came out of that for me was basically a totally amoral existence. I shouldn't say totally, a largely amoral existence. So if I wanted a bike, then the crew that I was in, we would just figure out, I'd find most of a bike, like in the garbage or something like that, and then I'd need a wheel, right? So what would I go around with my friends, and we'd look for bikes that were left out that had wheels, and we'd take them. And I think this only happened once for me. I also went through a shoplifting phase. I stole some candy bars. I stole a model train from the Gameways Arc, I think it was. Later went out of business. I felt bad. I apologize if you're listening to this. I stole a remote control car set. And then I got caught, and nothing bad happened. And then there was this moment where I was about to steal some sunglasses, and I just realized that I was frightened of basically where I was heading and what was going on for my soul. And although I don't put it consciously that way, I was just frightened of getting caught, right? But I think at a deeper level, because that was a new feeling for me, I was starting to have some fear of the consequences of where I was heading. And all of this, I was still working hard, 2 jobs, paper route, and all this kind of stuff.
And what comes out of that when you're in your 20s? Well, I got a career. And other people, I guess, they're still at the mall. And these are just choices. I don't resent their fun. I don't know why they would resent my career.
When I was 16, I was 15, and I wanted to get a job in a daycare because it paid really well. I needed the money, of course. And I lied on the application. I said that I was 16 because you had to be 16 to get the job. And unfortunately, when I went for x-rays, they had to have my birth date. So I gave that to them, and then I went and confessed to the woman. And I hated it. I hated it. I hated it. Confessing, right? I mean, to confess that I lied to get this job. I could have just blown past it. Maybe she never would have checked the birth date and done the calculation. It's likely she wouldn't have. But I went and confessed, and it was actually okay. It was actually okay. I went in and confessed. I ended up getting the job, and I kept the job for 2 years, and it was a good job to have. I worked there after schools. I got to leave school slightly early to go. And I also worked there in the summers, which was a lot of fun. And the kids are great fun to spend time with.
After high school, I wanted to go to college, but I needed some money. My father is actually a geologist, and he put me in touch with somebody who I thought was a geologist, actually turned out to be a sadist. And what he said was, I can give you a job, because, you've just graduated from a government-run high school, so you have all the skills of a turnip. But I can send you up north, and you will be a gold panner and prospector. And I did that for about a year and a half, all told. And I spent the first winter in a tent.
I thought a bear was attacking me once in the woods. I had a gun pointed at me from a native Indian in the woods. I've skydived. I've hiked through the wilds in Africa. I've gold panned, and I've been lost in the wilderness with no food. I have had lots of, exciting things happen to me in my life.
I went and did half an English degree, and then I went and did 2 years at a theatre school writing and acting, and then I went and did 2 years at history school, finishing a history degree, and then I did a master's in history, and I did not go into a PhD. I actually applied for one, but some bad marks in my third year of university kept me out. This is when I was doing way too much theatre.
Not to get overly artsy, but I played Gloucester in King Lear when I was in theatre school. Oh yes, I have a British accent, and I was in theatre school. Yet strangely, I'm married to a woman. Anyway. And I've been very useful to women. Like a woman who I was living with who wanted a film career. I wrote a screenplay and funded a film that you can find it on the YouTube channel, youtube.com/freedomainradio. It's called After. It's a good film, I think. And I had reviewed women's work, and I had done so many helpful and useful things for women, helped them with writing, ran lines for them if they were actors and so on, and all that.
Graduated from there, waiter, and then I became a temp, because I had some computer skills. I became a temp and worked in offices.
I had jobs where I was just working spreadsheets, and I had jobs where I was just, I worked on a union contract for the Ministry of Education when I was a temp, and, I was sort of basically responsible for organizing and producing this contract, which, was mind-blowing in and of itself. But, it's a dull job, for sure.
And then, one summer I was a gardener. I weeded people's gardens because it was a recession and I had no job skills to speak of. And I also ended up taking somebody's grandmother around town, from sort of a tourist guide for hire, and sort of odd jobs like that. I did a variety of, just jobs that have no name, right? Moving office furniture for a weekend and that kind of stuff. And which actually helped me to understand that it's kind of incomprehensible to me how people who do that for a living have fingers still, but that's another matter. And then I started moving into the professional realm. I started semi-professional. I was like I'd learned WordPerfect and so on. So I started doing those kinds of jobs, and then I really got desperate after I didn't have a job and had graduated, and I remember phoning up a woman that I'd met who'd given me some temp job or two, and I was just totally broke and no money. And I remember Marnie, her name was. I remember leaving a message sort of like, okay, Marnie, I need a job. I'm desperate. I will, something to do with computers would be great. I don't care really at this point if it's moving computers or cleaning computers or reaching around and cleaning the inside of computers or, but anything. I need to eat. And she ended up sending me on a job. And I'd already done some work on the side, which ended up being the company called Caribou, which I co-founded with my brother. And she sent me on a job for a COBOL programmer, and it's because I had learned programming and was a programmer with some credible effects of programming. When you go in for a job interview, if you go in, and I'm just going to overcharacterize this, so I apologize if I don't mean to be offensive, but if you go in kind of like hat in hand, and with your need for the job being the fundamental criteria, and with sort of last desperate hope written in big black crayon across your forehead. Okay, my forehead could take that many pieces of text, maybe yours can't, but if you go in like, oh God, I don't care, whatever I have to say to get this job, I've got to get this job. I just need this job, and whatever I've got to say to get this job, I'll say to get this job, in the sort of ironies of life, you're not going to get the job. And I became a COBOL programmer for about a year while working on this other job on the side, and then I quit, and I started this other company, which then grew and did very well, and so on. It's still running. I have been a manager for almost a decade, and I must have interviewed 200 or 300 people over the course of my career.
And then I got my first job as a COBOL programmer at a bank, having never taken computer science in my life. And then I founded a company. I rose to chief technical officer, sold the company.
I was involved in the sale. I was the chief technical officer, and there were wiser people than me involved in the sale as far as that business financial side goes. But definitely it gave me some filthy lucre to take some time off and write some books and so on. Revolution's available at my website, and Barnes & Noble, and Amazon, and Publish America. Anyway, buy the book.
And then had a shorter stint as a marketing executive before quitting Real Income and becoming a full-time internet philosopher, as you see before you now.